Look up, look up. You know what that's gonna say? Joe Gardiner.
It was interesting figuring out how to write for Joe. And I was intimidated because I thought, am I going to inappropriately represent where Joe comes from? So it was a real journey of listening to Jamie Foxx, working with Kemp, and listening to the Culture Trust. Anything that you have concerns or questions or didn't work and why, all of that is great to hear.
But you did this for what?
Why not?
Why?
Why not?
Why, though?
What do our filmmakers not know that they don't know that they don't know? So what we wanted to do was fill those gaps in a really thoughtful and intentional way. So that included creating a cultural trust of African-American employees.
Here we go again. Terrible music teacher. Talented at music. Terrible at teaching it. I mean, listen to this band. My band class never sounded like that. And we were 6th graders. We all just learned our instruments that same year. So, no excuse. This Joe guy, he's an interesting character. But he's the villain. He's the villain in Soul. Would you believe it? No. No one would believe it. Because he's the first Black character in a Pixar movie. So how could he be the villain? Well, he is. Joe Gardiner is shielded from villainy because he's Black and the main character. Pixar really shot themselves in the foot because they insisted that Joe be a Black character since they decided to switch from rock to jazz as the musical interest in the movie. Joe considers himself unique and different from any other person, despite other characters also dying prematurely. Look at that child right there. His inherent selfishness is shown to us and creates the plot events that follow. 1, he tries to escape death. 2, he defrauds the Jerrys in The Great Before by pretending to be someone else. 3, he finds 22's inspiration in order to steal it for his own gain. Joe's Blackness is played up in this movie and is actively promoted by Pixar and Disney's marketing department, but this causes a fundamental change in how the story should have played out. Joe cannot be the villain. He is Pixar's first Black protagonist and only the second in an animated feature when you look at both Disney and Pixar's filmography. But this goes directly against the setup of Soul. Joe is exactly the villain, and Pixar writing to hide that fact is disingenuous to the movie, the audience, and Black people. Yes, it is important to have positive representation, and Black Americans are lacking in that regard in the mainstream animation space, for sure. Hell, we can hardly get beyond the transformation trope. I mean, I asked for one movie where we can be a person the whole time. But Joe ain't it. He is a villain, and that's something we should accept. That's what should have been written. Black Americans are not infallible, and we're flawed. We are capable of villainy, so having Joe be a villain wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility. It would have been a shame to have this be our first foray into the Pixar library, but that's what we got. Now that we've accepted that Joe is the villain of Soul, if you haven't, just rewatch Soul carefully. We got problems. Joe is a bad person, but he never has to answer for his actions. He actually gets a reward for his selfishness and the harm that he created. As the audience, we're just supposed to ignore all that he did, waving it away as harmless shenanigans? No. Like, isn't it funny that technically that cat died in the end? 22 begins life as a middle-aged man and forces her into an actual traumatic experience. Stealing is okay if you're a cat. Literally doesn't give a shit about his student giving up music. In actuality, Joe doesn't care about anyone else in his life. Encourages lying to his mother, blaming 22 for Joe's problems. Joe can't even be happy for 22 and literally coerces her into giving up her life, saying that her life had no meaning at all without him. Damn. His arrogance knows no bounds. He knows that there is no inherent purpose to life, yet spews that nonsense in order to take the opportunity he lost from another. In his triumph of getting everything he wanted, he didn't even have a single shred of remorse. I mean, he's only concerned that his dream just wasn't as great as he built it up. Why should Joe get another chance at life when all he cares about is himself and not even actually living? By making Joe's actions okay, we lose the more important message of enjoying every moment while you have it, versus the one promoted, pursue your dreams at any cost. We are forced to applaud Joe in the end, but it is undeserved. We are supposed to be happy that he remembers how enthusiastic about life 22 was. We're supposed to be glad when Joe finally gives back 22's patch. He gets to achieve everything he wants, and because he gives the patch back in the end, everything is okay? The trauma he caused 22, forgiven immediately. He is rewarded with continuing his life. In the end, Joe should have accepted death as a way to atone for the harm he's caused from his own self-importance. Otherwise, none of it matters. He does a single act after reaping its benefits, and that undoes every wrong. I firmly believe that Joe's blackness helps him escape villainy because it's undeniable. Every positive thing done by Joe has been 22. Unsurprisingly, Joe is able to take credit for those actions when he looks back on it. It's in his character. But it should not absolve the actions of his soul. I can't say for certain that Pixar would have written this character differently if he had been white, but I do know that there would have been backlash from the black community in America if Joe had been painted as he is, a villain. Association with Joe would not be desired, and it shouldn't be. Anyway, tell me what you think in the comments. Like if you agree, dislike if you disagree for shorthand, because it's as simple as that. The next one is probably not The Princess and the Frog either, so don't get your hopes up. Thanks. Bye.
I would die a happy man if I could perform with Dorothea Williams.